The twin suns of Vraxian 9 burn like molten eyes over a battlefield of rust and bones. Smoke coils from the carcasses of forgotten war machines. In the center, a shattered warhorse, half metal, half flesh, drags itself through the dust, its single golden eye flickering like a dying star. From a platform above, alien traders howl with laughter. Dust rose in lazy spirals as the crowd began to disperse. The auction platform creaked under the weight of too many deals and too few morals. Aliens with glassy eyes and translator collars shouted prices for rusted tanks and half-dead drones. It smelled of ozone, oil, and something like burnt copper, the scent of forgotten wars. Elias Ward moved through the haze with the slow precision of a man who used to march under orders and now trusted no voice but his own. His coat was sun-bleached and patched at the elbows. His boots, military issue, still carried dried red sand from a planet no one remembered fighting for. He didn't belong here, and the aliens knew it. They watched him the way scavengers watch something that still might bite. The auctioneer's laughter cracked through the noise. Lot 49, a legendary war mount, last of its kind, half biological, half mechanical, completely useless. A tarp dropped, revealing the creature from the battlefield. Under the harsh neon lights, its metal plates caught the glare like broken mirrors. One eye was dark, the other glowed faintly gold. Wires dangled where reins once attached. The crowd jeered. Elias should have kept walking. He'd come for a generator, not a ghost. But when the beast's eye turned toward him, the world seemed to pause. He saw fear there, not the animal kind, but the human sort that comes after too many orders and not enough mercy. The auctioneer jabbed it with a prod. The creature barely flinched. See, defective. Won't even fight for its life. Laughter rolled again. Elias sighed, rubbed his temples and muttered, "You and me both, friend." He raised a single hand. 20 credits. The crowd went silent. Someone snorted. Humans and their charity projects. Elias met the auctioneer's triple gaze. 20. Take it or melt it. Either way, I'm leaving with something that still has a pulse. A tense beat. Then the gavel slammed. Sold! The crowd dispersed, grumbling. Elias approached the cage. The creature shifted, nostrils trembling, a rasp of metal over bone. For the first time, its voice stuttered through broken speakers, grim, glitched. No, more fire. Elias exhaled, half smile tugging at his mouth. You got a deal, partner. No more fire, as the hauler's doors closed behind them. Thunder rolled over Vraxian 9. Somewhere deep inside the machine, a spark, tiny, defiant, flickered back to life. The sky of Vraxian 9 bled orange by the time Elias's hauler reached the valley. The ride was long, bumpy, and filled with the mechanical wheeze of something trying to remember how to breathe. The creature, grim as Elias had started calling it, lay in the cargo hold, motionless but aware. Every few miles, its golden eye flickered open, scanning the horizon through a cracked lens. Elias's farm wasn't much. A prefab shelter welded to the side of an old mining shed, a field half claimed by dust, and a lonely wind turbine that sounded like a sigh when it turned. He'd chosen it for the silence. Now that silence felt crowded, with questions, with memories, with the heavy sound of metal shifting behind him. When he opened the hauler, Grim didn't move. The creature's frame trembled as if expecting another shock. Elias didn't rush. He'd seen that kind of fear before, soldiers after too many battles, flinching at the sound of their own heartbeat. Easy, he murmured, slicing through the last of the restraint cables. No one's gonna hurt you here. Well, unless you step on my water recycler. Then I might. The corner of his mouth twitched at his own joke. It fell flat, but he wasn't really aiming for laughs. Slowly, Grim stood. 6 legs, uneven and unsure, pressed into the dirt. The ground seemed to recognize its weight. Inside the shed, Elias had cleared a small corner, an improvised stable made of scrap metal and stubborn hope. He watched as Grim sniffed the air, sensors humming faintly. Then, unexpectedly, the creature bowed its head toward the water trough. It drank, awkwardly at first, like someone relearning a forgotten act of trust. Elias leaned against the wall. "Guess you were thirsty," he said. "Welcome home, I suppose." The creature turned its head, scanning his tone as if analyzing intent. For a brief second, Elias thought it almost smiled, not with its mouth, but through the soft dimming of its golden eye. That night, he lay awake, listening to the wind moan across the valley and the quiet, rhythmic clicks of Grimm's breathing. For the first time in years, the silence didn't sound empty. It sounded alive. The morning came sharp and bright. Elias stood outside the shed, coffee steaming in his battered tin mug. Grimm was beside the fence, motionless, watching the horizon, as though expecting orders from a sky that had long forgotten its soldiers. Days had passed since the auction. The creature was stronger now, scars knitting, mechanical limbs moving with less hesitation. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, Elias would hear it mutter to itself in static bursts, fragments of commands, coordinates, half-remembered names. Like a machine dreaming of the war it was built for. He'd been repairing one of its neural plates that afternoon when the sensor grid on his wrist suddenly blinked red. A faint ping, a coded signal, bounced off his farm's satellite array. Not from him. From Grimm, he froze. What did you just send? Grimm's head tilted. Its golden eye pulsed once, confused. Signal, routine check, standard, protocol. Elias's heart sank. Protocol to who exactly? Before he could isolate the frequency, a low hum filled the air. Something glittered above the dunes, sleek, silent, and unmistakably military. A drone! Damn it, Elias muttered, pulling the top over Grimm's body. Congratulations, partner. You just invited half the galaxy for coffee. The drone circled, scanning. Grimm's body tensed, the air around it humming with suppressed energy. For a heartbeat, Elias saw the Warhorse it used to be, the Predator machine built for command, for carnage. Then it looked at him, trembling. "They'll take me back," it whispered, voice glitching between metallic and childlike. Elias reached up, pressing his palm against its armored muzzle. "Not if I still remember how to lie." He grabbed an old rifle, fired 3 quick bursts into the sand. The explosion of dust blinded the drone long enough for him to overload his signal jammer. "Sparks flew!" The device screamed and died, but the drone dropped from the sky in a trail of smoke. Grimm blinked. "You destroyed it." "Yeah," Elias said, breathless. "I do that sometimes." He stared at the smoking wreck, heart pounding. Somewhere, someone was already reading that lost signal. He looked back at Grimm, at the living contradiction standing in his yard. "They know you're alive," he said quietly. "And now they know I am too." The wind howled through the valley like an alarm clock for ghosts that refused to stay buried. By dawn, the horizon glowed with approaching engines. Dust spiraled like storm clouds as the first military shuttle broke through the clouds, grey, sleek, and utterly unwelcome. Elias didn't need binoculars to know who was leading them. Only one person in the fleet would come chasing a single retired soldier across half the galaxy, Commander Lyra Thorne. She had once been his commanding officer, a tactician who never blinked under fire. Now she stepped out of the shuttle in polished armor, visor lifted, the years having carved both sharpness and sorrow into her face. "Elias Ward," she called, voice amplified by the comm. "You always did have a talent for making my life difficult." Elias grinned faintly, though his pulse raced. "What can I say? Retirement's boring." Behind her, soldiers fanned out, weapons drawn, but uncertain. Their target, a creature they had built but didn't fully understand, stood silently beside Elias. Grimm's golden eye watched them without aggression, only recognition. Lyra's tone softened, almost regretful. "That unit is classified property of the Defense Authority. It's dangerous, unpredictable. You can't keep it, Elias." He folded his arms. "Funny, you said the same about me once." Her jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're protecting." "Oh, I do," he said quietly. "Something that's learning what it means to live." Grimm stepped forward then, slow, deliberate. "I choose to stay." The voice came clear this time, stripped of static. It wasn't just words, it was will. The soldiers flinched. Even Lyra hesitated. "Machines weren't supposed to choose." "Lyra," Elias said, lowering his voice. "Tell your brass they built something better than a weapon. Don't destroy it just because it learned mercy." Before she could respond, the comms on her wrist crackled, orders from orbit. Retrieve or terminate, no witnesses. Her eyes hardened, and Elias saw the conflict tearing through her discipline. "Get inside," he whispered to Grim. When the first shot hit, it wasn't from her. It came from the nervous hand of a rookie soldier. Dust exploded, alarms screamed, and chaos followed. Elias ducked behind the hauler, returning fire, but only to scatter, not to kill. Grim roared, not in rage but fear, hurling debris aside to shield him. Through the smoke, Lyra shouted, "Elias, stand down!" He did, but only long enough to pull her visor off and say the words she didn't want to hear. "You're fighting the wrong enemy." Smoke curled from the burning horizon as the night swallowed the valley. The air shimmered with heat and static, the taste of metal thick on Elias's tongue. He crouched behind a half-shattered hauler, his rifle nearly empty, his lungs burning. Grim stood beside him, dented and bleeding light from the seams in its armor. "They won't stop," Elias said, wiping sweat from his brow. Grim's voice came low, steady. "Then neither will we." From the ridge, searchlights swept across the plain. Drones screamed overhead, their engines slicing the silence like blades. Somewhere beyond them, Commander Lyra's voice echoed through a loudspeaker, desperate and trembling. "Elias, don't do this. They'll kill you both." He almost laughed. "They already tried." Grim's golden eye flickered as it processed the incoming swarm. "I can end this. EMP pulse, large radius." Elias froze. "You'll wipe out everything within miles, including yourself." "I was built to end wars," Grim replied softly. "Maybe this time I'll do it right." A silence settled between them, thick, almost sacred. Elias looked up at the stars, just beginning to pierce the smoke. For years he'd fought for orders, then for survival. This was the first time he fought for meaning. He climbed onto Grim's back, one arm gripping a piece of armor like a saddle. "If we're doing this, partner," he said, "let's make it count." Grim reared back, 6 legs digging into the soil. Sparks flew as it charged into the open plain. The drones opened fire, tracing streaks of plasma across the night, but Grim weaved through them like a living storm. Elias fired bursts at the searchlights, shouting through the roar, "Now, Grim! Now!" A deep hum filled the air, then silence. For a breathless heartbeat, the world glowed gold. The explosion that followed was not fire but light, pure and blinding, washing everything in stillness. When Elias woke, the sky was quiet. Drones lay scattered like fallen stars. The valley was alive again, wind in the grass, sunlight breaking through clouds. Grim was gone. Only a single hoofprint glowed faintly in the dust. Elias smiled, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "They called you a malfunction," he whispered. "I call you a miracle." He turned toward the sunrise, the wind carrying a faint metallic echo that almost sounded like laughter.